Hello everybody, welcome to my channel, The Real Super Sam. Today is a very exciting top 5 stories list and I hope you enjoy. The Hobgoblin is my second favorite Spider-Man villain. He was a big player in the 80s Spider-Man comics, and even today, his history and comic events are remembered as being something grand and had pivotal moments in Spider-Man's crime-fighting career. In my opinion, he is better than the Green Goblin. He is much more tricky and just as clever. In the early days, he thought ahead more than the Green Goblins. For example, he always managed to escape by the skin of his teeth from his fights with Spider-Man, and working together with other supervillains like the Rose made him almost unbeatable. An important thing before I go on, this list is specifically on the top 5 best Roderick Kingsley Hobgoblin stories, the first ever Hobgoblin, mostly because going through the Hobgoblin's best stories, the top 5 of my list are just for Roderick Kingsley, so why not make another list someday on the second Hobgoblin's best stories, and as much as I wanted to put Amazing Spider-Man issues 695 to 697, it just wasn't much of a Hobgoblin story in my opinion. This villain has a lot of interesting tales, and since tonight is Halloween, I wanted to do this character. He is a goblin I haven't made a video like this about yet. Here are the top 5 best Hobgoblin stories, and I hope you enjoy. Number 5, Survivor of the Big Lie, Spider in the Middle, Bad Business. This is a great Hobgoblin story with the Green Goblin in it, and a conclusion to Roderick Kingsley's Hobgoblin history in Spectacular Spider-Man 259 to 261. This story is about Roderick Kingsley in jail and bragging about how he has one of the last of Norman Osborn's journals when he was the Green Goblin, and will show the world proof that Norman's the real Green Goblin, and because of Norman's informants everywhere, he has a plan to deal with Kingsley. That night, the Green Goblin, a new one, the fourth one, breaks Roderick Kingsley out of confinement and brings him to surprisingly Norman Osborn. Norman and Roderick come to a deal. Roderick will give Norman the journal back if Norman helps him find his brother for revenge. With that done, Roderick suits up as the Hobgoblin again for some fun times. Hobgoblin shows how smart and forward-thinking he is here, and he has to be dealing with Norman Osborn. This is one of the best tales and rare tales where the first Green Goblin is working with the first Hobgoblin. The dynamic is always tense, but I can't help but always feel the Hobgoblin is no threat to Norman. The ending really makes this a great Hobgoblin story because he manages to escape to paradise, freedom, and never have to be the Hobgoblin ever again. Since I like this villain a bunch, I'm actually glad he got his happy ending. The reason this isn't higher on the list, even though some may view it as a better story than the other ones, it's because it's partly a Green Goblin story too, but Hobgoblin does enough and has a lot of great moments that I put it on the list. Having the original Hobgoblin return here in a fiery battle with the Webhead makes this a must-read Hobgoblin story. Number 4, Secrets, Confessions, Endings. The Amazing Spider-Man issues 249 through 251 are the last Amazing Spider-Man issues before he gets the black suit, where the Hobgoblin faces Spider-Man for the first finale of Hobgoblin's history. Out of nowhere, some wealthy heads of New York like J. Jonah Jameson and Harry Osborn are getting blackmail from a mysterious sender, like proof Jameson created the Scorpion or that Harry's dad was the Green Goblin. At a club meeting where all the people being blackmailed were told to go to, the Hobgoblin appears from behind a curtain, where he threatens them to pay him unnoticeable fees here and there, or he will reveal their secrets. This is when Spider-Man is on the hunt to stop Hobgoblin once and for all. He goes around and questions every guest who was being blackmailed, even Roderick Kingsley, but comes up flat. Many know this storyline because of the ending, where all of Osborn's journals are destroyed and Hobgoblin apparently dies in the epic conclusion fight. This is surely a battle that tests Spider-Man's strength and resilience to harm, which is great since after this he gets the symbiote suit. But anyway, Hobgoblin's weapons are in full function here, especially in issue 251, and the fact that he has 2 or 3 plans to accomplish, which he almost does, makes this a super important storyline in his history. These issues have everything that makes Hobgoblin great, and more that become meaningful for both these characters' futures. Number 3, The Choice in the Challenge, Unmasked. The Amazing Spider-Man issues 275 and 276 was one of the conclusions in this giant Hobgoblin saga in the 80s Spider-Man comics, with Hobgoblin apparently finally revealed. At this moment in Peter Parker's life, he has decided to give up being Spider-Man. He has failed a lot of people recently and is growing up. He just has one more personal mission to complete before he can stop the Hobgoblin for good. To the Hobgoblin, this is his chance to shine. Things haven't been going well for him, and now it's now or never. Flash Thompson has been going psycho, like he hit his wife Shashan, and then later, after he leaves, the Hobgoblin specifically attacks her, which raises some eyebrows. This has some greatest art for Spider-Man and Hobgoblin. It is a very special confrontation between Spider-Man and one of his villains for the 275th issue. These issues have brutal and very tense moments in the fights and have some of the best build-up to them as well. In issue 276, it turns out that the Hobgoblin is Peter Parker's old high school bully turned friend, turned villain again, so to say, Flash Thompson. I love how this shot is reminiscent of Peter Parker unmasking Dennis Carradine in Amazing Fantasy issue 15. And yeah, a lot of this continues over the next 15 issues of the comic series, but these 2 issues are the best for Hobgoblin, but the special moments about the villain Hobgoblin are all here. The biggest thing with the Hobgoblin in the early days was who he really was, and neither the writers or Hobgoblin wanted to give us a hint, even in these issues, and as we know, there was a lot of false confirmations. This was the first time that apparently was confirmed. These 2 issues were all amazing for Spider-Man and will hopefully be remembered for a long time. Number 2, The Challenge of the Hobgoblin, The Sins of My Father. Amazing Spider-Man is 260 and 261 has one of Hobgoblin's best supervillain plans. His next appearance after his adventure in Amazing Spider-Man 249 through 251 was really in these 2 issues, where all of Norman's journals have been burnt up. He's after any that Harry Osborn may have of his father's. Hobgoblin attacks Harry right in his office, but Spider-Man is there to try and stop Hobgoblin's giant return. That doesn't work, and Hobgoblin actually kidnaps Harry's wife, Liz Allen, and Mary Jane Watson, obviously for the journals. At this time, Harry is not the Green Goblin anymore, but Hobgoblin never knew this, and there is a question whether this will lead to a Green Goblin versus Hobgoblin fight. Hobgoblin is also taking no crap from anybody here, and that makes him much more dangerous. One thing I like most about Hobgoblin is his willingness to work and plan out the future with other villains. Like here, he does it with the Rose and had been for the last few issues, and this story was being built up the whole time Spider-Man had his symbiote suit. It is the big conclusion to the Hobgoblin's first evil plan, which is to get Norman Osborn's Green Goblin journals. Yes, at the end, there is a brutal fight where Spider-Man almost knocks out Hobgoblin, if not almost kills him, but leaves him to save the innocents. I love these moments, and they happen with Hobgoblin more than suspected. This was a comic I waited a long time to read in my life, and it was not a disappointment. Number 1, Victims Back in Business, Secrets. The best Hobgoblin story is in the 3-issue miniseries titled Hobgoblin Lives. Jason McIngvale is on trial for being the Hobgoblin, but Spider-Man and Betty Brant having their history with Hobgoblin, Spider-Man because of his battles, Betty because of Ned Leeds being Hobgoblin, together, well, Ned Leeds apparently being Hobgoblin, you'll see in the actual story. Together, they find out Ned Leeds must have been set up just like Flash Thompson was because Ned didn't have the Goblin strength that Hobgoblin had after Spectacular Spider-Man issue 85. That night, the real Hobgoblin goes to Jason McIngvale in jail and kills him. Or is he the real Hobgoblin, as this guy goes to Roger Kingsley and forces the 2 to be partners? Okay, so this is the story, really the 3rd issue, that spells out Hobgoblin's whole history out, if you are wondering. The real Hobgoblin brainwashed Ned Leeds so bad that it ruined his marriage with Betty, and he thought he was the real Hobgoblin. This is the ending of the Hobgoblin mystery. It tells us everything about him, and with great pacing, action, and surprises throughout the whole thing. The end is where the iconic shot happens, and as in the story, Roger Kingsley is secretly his brother Daniel Kingsley in a mask. Daniel told Betty everything, and the Hobgoblin really is Roger Kingsley. The whole miniseries leads to this payoff, and what a perfect Hobgoblin story and adventure. And one that was well deserved for this comic book villain. Those are the top 5 best Hobgoblin stories in my opinion. So as you can see, this list is my list for the top 5 best Roger Kingsley stories. Not just, best Hobgoblin all around. For that, there's actually a top 10 story list made by my friend Jay Williams 99. And if you want to see much more Hobgoblin stories, please check out his video. I think next year, it'll be cool to do a top 5 best Hobgoblin 2 stories for October. Same on Halloween for Roger Kingsley stories, along with the top 5 Carnage stories finally, but like I said, in October next year, oh man. Kind of like a part 2, I'm thinking when it comes to top 5 Hobgoblin stories, put the 2 together, make it a top 10, I don't really know, just kind of a fun little idea. I think it would also be awesome if the Hobgoblin, like he is in the comics, is included in a Spider-Man video game. I think he could be a main villain if they tried. They could make a great long mystery adventure with a bunch of other villains fitting in it. That said, he could also be the main villain of a Spider-Man movie. He's my second favorite Spidey villain, so anything would work for me. Oh man, if only we got Spectacular Spider-Man Season 3, then we would have had it for the Hobgoblin. Anyway, happy Halloween everybody, and thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed.